If you've ever opened your mouth and answered a simple question like, do you speak Spanish, with si? Or maybe someone asked you in French, parlez-vous français? And you answered oui. If you've ever done that, especially if you're now listening to me in English, then congratulations, you are part of the bilingual or multilingual majority of the world. The word majority means the larger part of a group. So when we say the bilingual majority, we mean that most humans on Earth speak 2 or more languages, even though in countries like the US or the UK, it can sometimes feel like everyone is monolingual. Being bilingual definitely makes life easier when you get around. That means when you travel or you move from place to place, when you get around, or when you want to watch movies without subtitles. But here's where things really start to get interesting. Knowing 2 or more languages doesn't just change how you communicate. It can actually change how your brain looks and how it works. So let's clear something up. That means to explain something that is confusing. Let's clear something up. What does it really mean to know a language? Language ability is usually measured in 4 main skills: speaking, producing spoken language; writing, producing written language; listening, understanding spoken language; and reading, understanding written language. The first 2, speaking and writing, are called active skills because you actively produce language. The second 2, listening and reading, are called passive skills because you receive language rather than create it. A balanced bilingual is someone who has roughly, approximately, equal ability in all 4 skills in 2 languages. But in the real world, most bilinguals are not perfectly balanced. We use our languages in varying proportions. That means in different amounts. For example, you might speak Spanish at home, read English at work, and write mostly in English online. Depending on how and when you learned each language, researchers usually classify bilinguals into 3 broad types. Broad means general or wide, not very specific. If you imagine a small girl, her family moves to the United States from Colombia when she is 2 years old. Because she grows up hearing both Spanish and English at the same time, this girl becomes what linguists call a compound bilingual. A compound bilingual develops 2 languages simultaneously, meaning at the same time, using one shared set of concepts. In simple words, when Gabriela learns the idea of mañana, she doesn't just store one idea for tomorrow and a separate idea for mañana. She stores one concept with 2 labels attached to it. If you look at her older brother, he already learned Spanish first. Then he starts learning English seriously at school, while still speaking Spanish at home and with friends. He becomes what's called a coordinate bilingual. A coordinate bilingual keeps 2 separate conceptual systems, meaning 2 different mental folders for meaning. So for him, the English word house and the Spanish word casa might be connected to slightly different emotional or cultural meanings. And now we come to the girl's parents. They learn English much later in life, but when they learn new English words, they mentally filter them through Spanish, meaning they translate everything internally into their first language. They are what linguists call subordinate bilinguals. A subordinate bilingual learns a second language through the structure of the first language, instead of building a fully independent system. And there's something surprising here. All 3 types of bilinguals, compound, coordinate, and subordinate can become fully proficient, meaning very skilled and accurate in a second language. They can sound fluent, they can communicate perfectly well, and they can even have excellent pronunciation. So to a casual observer is someone who isn't paying close attention. The differences might be invisible, but scientists called neurolinguists, people who study how language works in the brain, they've started to look under the hood. That's an idiom, meaning to examine something deeply, like a mechanic examines a car engine. And thanks to brain imaging technology, machines that let us see activity inside the brain, they discovered that how and when you learn a language leaves real physical traces. It's well known that the brain has two hemispheres. There's the left hemisphere, which is more analytical, meaning logical and detail-focused. Then we have the right hemisphere, which is more involved in emotional and social processing. That's not a total split. It's a matter of degree, meaning a tendency, not an absolute rule. And here's the key idea. Language uses both emotional and logical functions, but as children grow up, their brains slowly become more lateralized, meaning functions become specialized on one side of the brain. And this leads us to something called the critical period hypothesis. A hypothesis is a theory or a proposed explanation that still needs testing. This critical period hypothesis says that children learn languages more easily because their brains are more plastic. Plasticity means the brain's ability to change and reorganize itself. Children's brains can use both hemispheres to learn language. Adults, on the other hand, they usually process language mainly in the left hemisphere. So in real life, this means if you learn a language as a child, you may develop a more holistic grasp of it. Holistic means seeing something as a complete whole, not in isolated parts. You feel the emotions, the humor, and the cultural meanings more naturally. Adults get something different. Research shows that people who learn a second language later in life often show less emotional bias, meaning their feelings interfere less with their thinking when using that second language. They also show a more rational approach, meaning more logical and less emotional decision-making when solving problems in their second language. So in a strange way, children learn languages more emotionally, adults learn languages more analytically. Here's the part that really blows people away. That's an idiom, meaning amazes or shocks people. The part that blows people away. Bilingual brains are physically different. They have higher grey matter density, meaning more brain tissue containing neurons and synapses. They have more activity in certain brain regions when using a second language. So a neuron is a brain cell. A synapse is the connection point between these neurons. So bilingualism literally builds extra mental muscle. And there's something even more impressive. The lifelong mental workout, continuous training of switching between languages can delay the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. To delay the onset means to make something start later. Studies suggest this delay can be up to 5 years. Believe it or not, before the 60s, the 1960s, experts thought bilingualism was a handicap, meaning a disadvantage, a handicap. They believed it slowed children down because kids had to sort out, separate, organize. They had to sort out two languages. But those ideas were based on flawed studies. meaning badly designed research, flawed studies. And later studies showed something much more interesting. Bilingual students sometimes make more mistakes or take longer in cross-language tests involving two languages. But switching between languages activates and strengthens the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And this is the part of the brain that controls what we call executive function. That's your ability to plan and manage behavior, problem solving, task switching, moving between tasks, and filtering out irrelevant information. So in short, bilingualism trains your brain to focus, to switch, and control attention better. So the question, does bilingualism make you smarter? Not exactly, but it makes your brain healthier, more complex, more active, and more resilient, more resistant to aging. And the best part? Even if you didn't have the good fortune, that means the luck, to learn a second language as a child, it's never too late. Because when it comes to your brain, a little exercise can go a long way. That means small efforts can produce big benefits. So maybe today is the day you make the linguistic leap, meaning a big step forward in language learning, from hello to hola, bonjour, or whatever. Some key vocabulary when we talked about majorities. That's the larger part of a group. Most humans belong to the bilingual majority, for example. Varying proportions, that means different amounts. She uses Spanish and English in varying proportions, as an example. Simultaneously is at the same time. He learned both languages simultaneously. When we say to filter through, that means to translate internally. She filters English through Spanish. It passes through her Spanish language first. Fully proficient, very skilled. He or she is fully proficient in English. A casual observer is someone not paying close attention. You could say a casual observer wouldn't notice her accent. Plasticity. We talked about plasticity. This is the ability to change. Children's brains have high plasticity. When we talk about holistic, this means whole-based understanding. She has a holistic grasp of English culture, for example. Emotional bias, these are feelings influencing decision. You could say his emotional bias is lower in English. Grey matter. We talked about grey matter. This is just brain tissue with neurons. Bilinguals have more grey matter. And to delay the onset of something is to make it start later. Exercise, for instance, can delay the onset of dementia. Flawed? That just means badly designed. The experiment was flawed. We had a few phrasal verbs in the episode. To get around is to travel or move. I got around Europe easily, you could say. To clear up something is to explain the confusion. Let me clear that up, you'll hear. To move to, immigrate, when it's between countries. She moved to Canada. To filter through means to mentally translate. He filters French through English. When we say sort out, this means to organize or separate. Children sort out two languages. To look under the hood, this is to examine deeply. Scientists looked under the hood of the brain. A few idioms and sayings. You heard blow people away. This means to amaze. The results blew people away. Look under the hood is to analyze deeply. Researchers looked under the hood of bilingualism. To go a long way means to have a big effect. Practice goes a long way, for instance. And to make the leap, this is to take a big step. She made the leap into English. And that's everything for this episode on bilingualism. Thank you for listening. This is Listen. Please share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, bye-bye for now.